Hey, what's good, everybody? Let me know if you can hear me. Put it in the comment. It was good, Latin. It was good, Renika. Give me a thumbs up or something. Sorry, but I was supposed to get on here like about 30 minutes ago, and I was having some hiccups on this, but we'll get into this. Okay, it was good, Wanda. It was good. Oh, at the bottom of the screen, I just letting you know. Well, I'm glad you asked that. How you doing, sis? Dr. Lynn. Okay, cool, cool. Y'all can hear me. All right, all right. Okay, so good. Hey, so this is the lift off. This is the kickoff to the soul to soul conversations. And again, I apologize because I was supposed to be on here a couple minutes sooner, but it was having some hiccups. You know how technology goes. It was good, Brittany. Um, let me. Okay. And so to answer your question, Dr. Lynn, so on the ticker at the bottom, it's just letting you know if anyone is interested in supporting the soul to soul conversations, that you can do a cash app. You can cash app with the $ Satori seals, or if you're interested in being a supporter for like $11 every other month, I can shoot you the link. You know, Dr. Lynn, I know you're part of the Wise Tribe, and I can provide that for you. So basically, the ticker just letting anyone just kind of move. We have some people just, just contribute however they move upon their heart, just to send something to kind of help support this thing for the grown folk. Okay, so several got an alert, so we're just going to do some late night chat. I'm on the East Coast right now in the Midwest, and it's cold here. it's cold here, so I think a lot of areas of the country is pretty cold. So I figure, it's probably a good time for us to kind of just kick off. Hey, how you doing, Dr. Flowers? It's a good time to kind of kick off and just vibe out on the soul to soul. So just so everybody understands, the soul to soul is based off. This conversation is based upon the Living Soul Numerology Soul Guidance System. And the interesting thing about this system and what it does, it highlights our soul blueprint. Basically, it kind of captures how our soul moves and manifests itself through different archetypes. We have like primary 4 different archetypes that we kind of operate through. We have one center archetype that a lot of people are familiar with. They will say like a life path that we operate up under. And the unique thing about the living soul is in that life path, we don't view it as one dimension because we know there's other factors that makes up that one soul number that you're operating life under, that life path number. And so what we look at is, we know one of the archetypes captures the emotion, the other one captures our ego, the other one captures our bodily sensations, and the other one captures the breath or the soul. And so we also refer to that as our moon archetype, our sun archetype, our earth archetype, and our living soul archetype. And so, oh, you're fine, Dr. Lim. I'm actually supposed to be coming to Chicago soon. So, in this, what's unique, there's a broad, there's broad things that it covers. But what I want to do tonight is to kind of tap into some of y'all got, if you was on the text blast, you saw the numbers 3385. As the soul numbers I'm going to cover, I'm going to keep it anonymous, the individual that sent it in. Um, What is interesting in the individual, just like, please cover this because I'm kind of having like these rough patches. So I think they're kind of interested to see what shows in their soul numbers. Okay. And so there's four numbers as part of our soul numbers, and some numbers might repeat itself, just depends. And as you see in this case, we have two numbers that repeats itself, 3 3. The soul, all four numbers is 3385. And so what I'm going to do is kind of tap into this. And before I do, let me just look in the comments, I see some of y'all are sharing some things. Okay. Go ahead and put things in. I can see what y'all are putting there. And so what I want to do is get into this real fast. I know this is kind of different. We're kind of kicking it off. So this individual, hey, how you doing, Becky? It was good, Jacqueline. So this individual her soul numbers are 3385. 5 is her living soul number. So she primarily moves, and these numbers are kind of like the persona, the soul persona of us. These are things that we recognize, people can feel from you, they recognize about you, but also on a deeper level, I like to call them, these are like our spirit personality of that's behind our personality, right? These are these influencing archetypes that comes across how we operate in different aspects of life. And so primarily this individual is moving through life under the 5. And the 5 is what we recognize as the soul liberator. So some basic things about the soul liberator is a soul liberator. So basically this individual is a soul liberator. Okay. The soul liberator, energetically wise, and this is probably going to be something new. It is an androgynous neutral energy. So the gender energy position of this archetype is an androgynous energy. It's androgynous neutral. Okay. And so this individual is in this archetype, they're very centered, they're very self-determined. They have a high regard for truth, they pursue truth, they seek truth. They are really aligned with environments of love. They're very creative. They have an aspect to them being kind of spontaneous, so they really don't want to feel boxed in. They really operate in balance and freedom. And some that might perplex some people's minds, like with balance and freedom. But to really have a sense of freedom, you got to have a sense of balance. And so this type of individual is very self-motivated, but they have an ability to not favor the right or left. They can be right there, smack in the middle, and see things for what they are. It's a very progressive archetype, very creative archetype, very innovative, archetype. It's a trend-setting archetype. Okay, it was good, Venus. And so this archetype is they operate under the soul liberator. Now, I mentioned the other three numbers, and we have 338. Okay. And so I'm gonna go in that order. So the 3 is aligned with their emotional persona. And we recognize that as the soul promoter. Then under the sun, which refer to kind of the ego alignment, is also a soul promoter. And then under the earth, which wraps around our sense of stability, our sense of balance, our sense of comfort, is aligned up under what we call the soul communicator. So these 4 numbers are very interesting, about this individual. So as you probably recognize, I already mentioned that the 5 is an androgynous neutral. Now there's the 3s, which are the soul promoter, are also androgynous archetypes, but these are androgynous submissive. Okay, so there's a uh, aspect to be able to be supportive and have this sense of adaptability about it. The soul promoter is really about just what the name says. It's really about validating and encouraging other people, incubating people to help them harness their potential and help launch them. They really enjoy seeing people thrive. The soul promoter is a very welcoming type of energy when you're around these individuals that operates in a three, or they have a three in a soul profile. These individuals are very welcoming because really they operate from a very selfless space. So you don't feel ulterior motives from them if they're aligned properly, right? Now, if they're in their shadow, is a whole nother scenario. Okay. But when they're not in their shadow, it's a very selfless type of energy, very inviting, very welcoming. And you feel a sense of motivation. You just feel, because these individuals really care about you launching, you are really moving forward, propelling forward. And so, of course, the average person is going to feel very connected to that. Who don't want to have someone in your midst that really launches you forward and really has your well-being for your rise at heart with no IOUs attached to you? That is the soul promoter. Okay. And so, as you recognize, I mentioned there are four numbers involved, is the 3385. And so the threes are very amplified in this person's soul profile. So this individual is very selfless. They move in a very selfless space. They can be very, very supportive. People, when we look at that, let me mention the eight. Okay. And the eight is a masculine archetype, but it's a masculine submissive archetype. And so when you got the androgynous submissive, you got two of those, and you got one of the masculine submissive. You have three submissive positions. So this lets us know that this individual, and I know if they're listening right now, that one of their strong points is being a good listener. They're really able to take in what people really have to say and really help support them in what they really need to do without any hidden agendas. Okay. And the reason why they have no hidden agendas is because they have that neutral uh, position from their five at play. So this is an individual that probably gets a lot of people that just wants to confide in them. And so this person expressed they kind of feel like they're in a rough patch. Well, one, we can say right off the rip is you're a magnet. A lot of people feel like they really probably confiding to you. And so you probably take on a lot of that energy for a lot of people because that you have a strong androgynous energy. So more than likely you don't really put off any aspect to you where you feel like people feel like you're being judged. You really operate in a space of non-judgment, in a selfless space. So your energy just naturally brings people into you. You have this natural gravitation to you, and you exude a level of care that that we all appreciate. And you come from a space of care that's really authentic. It's very sincere, and it's really felt. And so, and it's felt at the soul level. And so people really take to you. So if you don't really know how to really manage your boundaries and stuff, you can find yourself getting overwhelmed. So that's probably one aspect why you kind of feel kind of jarred, some things you shared. All right. Also, let's dig into this. So I talk about the soul promoter, okay, and what that archetype does. Let's get into the eight. All right. The eight is aligned with the earth archetype. And that's the soul communicator. That's a masculine submissive, energy. So there's an aspect to this individual where they can assert themselves, but they assert themselves more in a supportive role. So as we can really see that this person really thrives in supporting, Now, a lot of people might think being a supportive role is not a power. It is a power. It's a power, and they understand the art of cooperation and collective impacts. So this individual is very mindful of that, probably more inclined to move in this type of direction. When we talk about energy, we talk about how somebody's soul moves, okay, and the position that it takes. And the three different positions that our energy can take can be a dominant position, a neutral position, or a submissive position. You heard me mention about a neutral position and a submissive position. When we talk about gender energy, we all heard about masculine and feminine, but we also, as you hear me mention today, about the androgynous. So you have the masculine, androgynous, and feminine energy, and each gender energy takes a position, and depending on our soul profile, we begin to really see which gender energy positions are at play, and are and is at work through how we really move and also how we interact with other people. Okay, this is one of the great things to understand about relationships, and I will be doing readings on those. But in this case, we're just talking about an individual. But one thing about relationships is that we can begin to see, okay, when we talk about gender energy position, we're not talking about man or woman or whatever. We're not talking about roles. We're talking about the energy position, because a man can have feminine feminine energy. It could be have a feminine dominant, feminine submissive, or feminine neutral energy that's primarily in a soul profile. Doesn't mean that they're a man. It just means just how their soul moves in its own favorability. Okay, and vice versa. A woman can have a lot of masculine energy that can take different positions, dominant, neutral, or submissive, or people can take on androgynous energy and take on a position of dominant, neutral, or submissive. Just want to just put that out there. Okay. Feel free to just any comments if you feel like this is really good so far. So I kind of want to get into it. I don't want to hold everybody too long, but I just want to explain that, since some of the terminology I might be throwing out here may seem a little different. Okay. So the masculine submissive, which is, we know, the soul communicator. So there's a communicative piece that this person really needs. So this individual, their sense of stability thrives in a communicative position. They need communication for them to feel stable. Okay. The 8 also represents acquisition. So they also favor, it was good, Sister Lee. Their soul also favors to feel comfortable. So we talk about the 8, we're talking about how they're going to feel comfortable. Okay, this is up on the Earth archetype. They need communication for to feel comfortable. They need ample resources to feel comfortable. They need to have an awareness or an ability to be able to make sure that problems can be solved to feel comfortable. And they also value using technology to feel comfortable. It was good, Sister Mary, to feel comfortable. Okay. So this 8, which is a masculine submissive energy, feels stable around communication, also resource utilization. All right. Having technology and being able to solve problems. So now we're about to get into the sauce. This individual may deal with a lot of different rough patches because their stability seems to always may feel at times being compromised. And so this is what the numbers are going to show right now. Okay. So their 8, their sense of stability can feel at compromise. And I'm answering the individual that want me to kind of cover this. Okay. So now y'all follow with me. I mentioned the 4 different soul numbers that I'm looking at is a 3385 as it pertains to this individual. And this is based off of their date of birth, of course. Okay. So what's interesting is, and this is where the living soul numerology system is different, from other numerology systems. So the eight um, shows an imbalance with the three. And y'all recall there's two threes. Okay. I went over about the soul promoter. Um, the soul promoter is a selfless archetype. It's an androgynous submissive, archetype. It loves to see people win. Okay. Now, if you think close to what I said about the eight, in order for it to feel stable, it needs it needs it needs the access to resource utilization, right? It needs a sense of communication. Um, so we're showing in the eight, in reference connection to the three, that it can experience some imbalances, and we know that this is already amplified energy because the three is very strong. Okay, and so what this shows that it's inclined to show a shadow. So the individual, if you're paying attention, they said, they're open from what I have to say. So there's showing a shadow of self-neglect. Okay. And this is coming off basically the math behind their soul profile. Okay. So based upon the eight, it positions itself with the three in a space of being imbalanced. So it can really cause a lot of imbalances. So if someone feels their sense of stability sometimes feel challenged, this is going on with inside themselves. I'm sorry I didn't bring that clarity here. This is the soul state of the individual. This is the inner war that they have going on inside them. And one of the wars that go on inside them is that their eight and their three kind of finds itself creating imbalances. And remember what I said, one of the threes is their emotional persona. The other three is their ego persona. Okay. And so the imbalance, the drive to promote and see other people win can sometimes put their stability at risk, right? Or it can compromise the stability. So this individual is the math within inside your living soul shows that you will have these strong tendencies. Hey, peace, Tavia. We'll have these strong tendencies. Okay. Let me know if this is making sense to y'all. Okay. So the eight, again, in connection with their three, is showing a shadow of self-neglect. And when we think about the three, as I explained, the three is selfless. The three also promotes the underdog. So, so they can find themselves really trying to help and try to empower others, but will compromise its own stability. So this explains why this individual may feel like they are keep hitting these rough patches. It's because your emotional makeup and your ego makeup is very inclined to compromise your earth makeup. And so your sense of stability, it can find itself being compromised a lot because of your selflessness about you, want to see other people thrive, to the point that you might make yourself a martyr. Okay. It's kind of like, and ladies, I know you can relate to this. You will overextend yourself for everybody else and forget about your own self-care. And that's what is showing right now in this soul profile. Okay. And so this causes them to have rough patches. Okay. And so when we talk about the eight, one of the things it thrives on and that it needs is a sense of congeniality. Or in other words, they love a very communicative and a friendly type of vibe. It needs that. So now the good thing about it is it gets that, but because in a sense of imbalance, it's also showing something else that's going on with a sense of stability. So one part we see that there's a inclination to self-neglect, martyrdom. All right. So anybody that's really on here, if you have a 3, especially you have a double or a 2 or more 3s in there, this is very relatable to you. Okay. So this self-neglect, but here's another thing that it shows is that in this position, it also shows the self-talk can work against them. So this individual is also hitting rough patches and a compromise of stability because of the self-talk that's not very favorable for them. So they kind of have negative self-talk. A lot of us, if we be honest, a lot of us are limited in our lives, we're limited in our pursuits because of the conversation that we have going on inside ourselves that's not really edifying or very encouraging. A lot of us are our own worst enemy. So what we see right here is that another shadow of this person is that they probably entertain a lot of self-condemning thoughts about themselves. And they might find themselves, because they love to see other people win, that they shift into their ego and they want to bring a validation to themselves by now trying to get approval from other people or recognition because of these bouts they might go into of negative self-talk that's going on within. Let me know if you're rocking with me right now. Dr. Lynn, when you clarify what you're asking, love, I see what you're saying. Are there any factor of the environment this 3 and 8 is in? Give me a visual. Give me a little more context in what you're asking, please. Okay. All right. So we see that this individual right here has to really deal with the self-talk, and they have to deal with self-neglect. Okay. And these are probably the shadows that they probably wrestle with. And because the 3 is a double, is what we call it's in conjunction. So we know that it's amplified. Okay. So the now I mentioned earlier that their living soul number operates under the 5 as a soul liberator. And so it's very interesting now. Now we're going to see a sense of tension, okay, that the 8 experiences. Okay. Living situations that are a need around individuals that don't want success. Okay, got you. All right. Also, so keep in mind, there's a lot of attention right here that I want everybody to see that's centering around the 8. The 8 is highlighting the environment that they should feel comfortable in. But what I'm breaking down right now is that they are where they suffer themselves, when they cause themselves to feel uncomfortable or they begin to compromise their stability or they start to feel unstable, is coming from these things that I'm talking about, that I'm outlining. And I showed in relation to the 3 because the 8 flows into a position of being imbalanced, shows an imbalance. And so there's a lot of imbalance that could manifest, and an imbalance that manifests will more than likely come from the self-neglect tendencies and the negative self-talk that they probably entertain and they engage in. But also now I'm going to talk about the tension that they have within inside themselves, all right, that they also might affect their stability. Okay. And so their 8 takes a position with the 5 to be in tension. Okay. And so there's so they might find themselves really getting stressed out because there's a part of them where they need to feel free. There's a part of them that want to always feel a sense of balance, and they might wrestle with trying to communicate in a way to create that around themselves. Okay. And so, even though we know the 8 archetype centers around in communication, it's finding itself um, to have an imbalance, because the 5 represents balance. So the communication that they engage, because it's infused also with the 3, and we know the 3 has an imbalance, their communication is not coming across a lot clearly, probably in the people that they engage with in a personal space or the regular interaction, or in a domestic setup. So this individual might find themselves really feeling unstable because they're not using their communication as a tool to help build balance, to help build um, um, confidence, obviously, right? Um, see anything else right here? Yes. Thank you, Latin. Okay, so this individual kind of has this. So the good thing is they have a lot of adaptability to them. So this is not a doom and gloom type of situation. Because they have 3 androgynous gender energies in them, this gives them a strong ability to be very adaptable. So it's not like this person is so locked into self-neglect and negative self-talk to the point where their willpower is weakened. Actually, on the contrary, they have a strong enough will and a level of flexibility within inside themselves to be able to pull themselves out of this when they get into a funk. So one of the things that they need to do, and this kind of goes along with Dr. Lynn was kind of pointing to, is that this individual has to really become very intentional. Now, what's interesting is that what we call in the living soul the energy domain. The energy domain that oversees the 3 is being intentional and validating. Okay, so by it, they need to be very mindful for itself. Remember, I said they have 3 submissive positions. So on the one side of it is they can find themselves looking towards supporting others and forgetting about itself. Okay, so that tendency will show up there because it has a score of a 3 of the submissive position. So in that, it might find itself forgetting about being intentional for itself. So this individual has to make sure that people around them that reminds them of their own importance. There's an aspect to the 3 where the 3 needs validation, not from a needy space or anything like that. It's from a healthy space, but it's also a soul need for them. So when they're supporting people, they're not really looking for recognition or anything like that. But when they don't feel a sense of validation or a thriving or a recognition, it can start to bother them. And because we see that, and I think that's what starts to trigger this negative self-talk, they start to probably entertain self-doubts, all these different type of things that comes with that. Okay, so this individual really has to make sure that they fence themselves around intentional relationships. Okay, and so one of the things is, since we're talking about the 3, the 3 can find itself very productive with people that are very empathic, because the 3 might not go around and tell everybody, hey, I need to be validated. It's an androgynous energy. It's not self-seeking like that unless it's really in the shadow. So they need someone who has a natural eye for their well-being, just like they have a natural eye for the well-being of other people. So they have to have a lot of nurturing energy around them. People that are that matches their selfless intent, people that matches their ability to be supportive of others. So they need the support. So they have to make sure and be very intentional to find compatibility or whatever with these things that are emanating. Let me know if I'm answering your question, Miriam, that are emanating. So they need to be around people that's going to help bolster them, okay, without them having to ask. So it's kind of like, I'm a man. There's nothing like when you're making moves and a woman just naturally just knows what you need, and she kind of already just puts the provisions in place for you because they just understand how you move, right? And that's kind of the scenario, like with this individual right here. They need that. They actually need it very strong because we said that their 3 is very amplified. So they actually need that, and they might not communicate that. Remember, we said there's a glitch in their communicative space. Okay. Okay, cool, Miriam. So this right here, even though they have a communicative archetype, we're seeing that their communication is not they're not able to effectively communicate properly in a domestic setup. So to help curb this, they need people who just naturally are attuned to them to help them feel bolstered, right? It reminds me of myself personally. I remember, it's been years ago when I was going through some hard times, and it was interesting that obviously I didn't realize I manifested, right? But I did, and there was a lot of sisters that really took a care, like, yo, we're gonna make sure you good. And that was that was deep for me because I really don't ask for help, especially back then, and they just saw a lot was going on, and there was about 5 individuals that was just it was very penetrating, especially as a man. It really brought and made me visit different aspects of myself. And that's the power of the 3. That's the power that this individual has right here. Is I can remember when, and let me say this if I did not say it clearly, the 3 is governed by the principle of care. That's what rules it. Okay. So the 3 is very intentional. And so wherever they care about, they manifest. This is why they got to be very careful with their self-talk about themselves, because that's a misplaced care that's going to be working against them. But like in my example, talking about when you got people operating a sense of care from a very selfless space, they're not looking or seeking anything from you, that really penetrates your soul. So this individual needs that effect. They need to be around people that has a skill to know how to penetrate their soul with a sense of care, a sense of empathy. They don't need a shoulder to really cry on. They just need that helps build up their personhood. Okay, how you doing, Nikki? All right. So is that making sense so far right there? And I'll talk about the other part. Okay. Now, here's another good thing. So let's go back to the imbalance that's coming from the communicator, the tension that it has within inside itself. And when I'm talking about the tension inside itself, we all know people where it's like they're their own worst enemy. So when I talk about the soul state, I'm talking about the state of you. Okay. And some of us, see some people like, man, does anything ever bother you? You seem pretty always balanced, right? Well, that poor market, their soul state, that all their numbers are not conflicting with each other. There's a state of harmony, there's a state of resonance, there's a state of productivity that's in right there. So they're not going to find themselves just super high, super low, or whatever. They just kind of be able to flow. But then there's other people, depending on our makeup, depending on the math behind us, behind our soul, that we might have some of these little glitches, these little ticks and stuff that kind of just can shift us into different spaces. And in this case, as I've been breaking down tonight, that's what we're seeing right here. And this person was like, yo, just please just be very candid, and just kind of share what you see in these numbers, because I am hitting rough spots. They didn't give me no details. So, but I'm just breaking down what these numbers are showing, also with some intuitive inspiration with it, mixed in with it. Okay. So there's a tension. So I want to make, so this person, this goes back to Dr. Lynn, where she was asking, inside that environment, and Miriam, that y'all was asking about what they need in their relationship. Also, because they operate in the 5 as a living soul, they need truth seekers around them. So one front, we need people that are empathy, that shows a lot of empathy, that's very mindful of them. But they also need people that bring a sense of truth for them. Why is this important? Because remember, the 8 is aligned with their earth, okay? And so because it's aligned with the earth, we talk about the stability, and this individual is showing, based off of their numbers, that they can find themselves, cause themselves to compromise their stability. Well, what is showing, and we see there's tension with their 5, that people can communicate their emotions and stuff like that. It don't mean they're communicating truth. And when we say, oh, my truth, that don't mean that it's really the truth. You're just communicating a different wave inside your emotion. Okay. This person needs truth to encircle them as well, to help them feel balance in the sense of problem solving. A lot of us, a lot of times, find ourselves trying to solve problems absent of the truth. This individual needs the truth. Well, we all do, but this person needs the truth. Any people that's around that kind of just pours out the truth and favors truth, so that way it can find its sense of stability. So this person really is not a seeker, really, of the truth, but we know with the drawing position, this person is not adverse to truth. So that's another great thing. Okay. Because the 3 and the 5, those are androgynous energies. Okay. So there's an openness, or there should be an openness to the truth. They actually, in their energy field, I would reckon they probably should be able to attract people that kind of bears the truth. But if they're not, they find themselves in very unstable situations, more than likely they don't have people around them that upholds the truth or helps them see the truth. Okay. So their decision making, they can start shifting themselves into a lot of indecisions, and they can find themselves miscommunicating things because it's not balanced. Okay. So their communication, we're showing in this number setup, is that the communication can find itself being in balance a lot. So they waver, even though they need communication, their communication actually works against them. That causes instability because inner communication is not balanced. So this individual, you have to really work on effective communication, using different communication tools to help you out. Now, you already know I'm a wisdom coach, a life consultant. If you're interested in a tool, we have Talk It Out communication tool to help you out with that. Okay. All right. So that's what we see right there. All right. Now, before I shift, let me know what y'all thinking right now. I'd love for y'all's thoughts. Just put them in. I'm able to read. Everything's still looking good on my end. Okay. Now, here's another great thing in this individual's profile, is that their 5, which is the liberative, with their 3 is high. It's a high resonance. So their ability to bring balance and operate in selflessness. And this individual is a very motivated individual based off of these numbers. And they can really, it just works very well. So this person, I would think they probably should be involved in very creative things, entertaining or things like that, because they thrive in a sense of freedom, a sense of expression, being able to network on a whole different level. So there's an aspect to them where they are very engaging. Shalom, brother. This individual is very engaging. So they should be really aligned in a lot of things centered around these archetypes for them to be able to thrive. Okay. And hopefully that the people they invite into their life really mirrors that. This individual really has to make sure they have people that mirrors that in a personal space. Okay. So that way they can feel thriving, because they give a lot of themselves naturally. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of their soul makeup. So part of that makeup, they have to make sure they have to counterbalance that aspect of themselves so that way they can still thrive in that. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, back in the days of old cartoons, remember, I think it was Tom and Jerry, and no, I'll think about Scooby-Doo, right? Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo would get to running, and Scooby-Doo would grab a cane or something and grab him by his neck and pull him back. This individual needs people that's going to kind of pull you back in your, all right? So I'm probably going to do a part 2. So I'll probably tomorrow morning at 11 Eastern, go more over this. I just thought about this. I want to go over their love styles. And so some of you know, well, you might not know, within the living soul system, there's 9 love styles that aligns with our soul profile as well too. And we can have a mix of these love styles. And I'm thinking that this person's, their love style may also be a factor in filling their rough patches. And I'll just mention this real quick. Based off of their 3s, is something that we call a mania love. So on the surface, not a bad thing, but these individuals really connect and really love deep. But this is one love style that can quickly shift on some manic stuff. So I think this individual has a tendency maybe to invite a lot of people into their life, into their space. It's very connected. It's a very, very charged energy. But it can find itself operating out of its core. Okay. So I'm going to hit a little bit of that tomorrow, just looking at this, because that also might contribute. I'm going to make note of this. That also might contribute to some of the things they kind of maybe just trying to plow through. Okay. Let's see. Put in here. Do these individuals. Yes, Dr. Lynn. Yes. Now the good thing is they have that, but there's a sense of balance with it, because the good thing is they have a 5, so that that very expressive side and their love style, it don't have to be out of pocket, but it can be. But you see what this is. So do these individuals typically draw takers because they give so much? Ooh, yes. How does one combat takers away from coming to them? And I think I kind of was covering a little bit of that, but yes, Mira, I don't know if you hopped on when I was saying this earlier, but yes, they definitely, because the three is so welcoming. You know, some people, when you come across some people, there's like a jar effect, right? Or you know that they're in the room, or the three is so seamless, right? You know they're in a room, but then you don't know they're in a room. You know they're in a room because you feel good, you feel pleasant, you don't feel disturbed, right? And because of that, people take very well. This individual, you know, they might just be in casual, right? Stand on the wall, and all of a sudden, they might get three people come to them and just dump on them about their, you know, just what's going on, because they like, oh, they just could they just have this level of openness. That, you know, and they start, oh my God, I was going through this at work and blah, 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 blah. And they ain't ask them to get that report from what they was going on. Then another person might be like, oh, you know, my husband's tripping, and then, oh, my kids, you know, so this type of energy, you know, when we talk about these soul archetypes, I like to also refer to them. There's also emanations. So these are emanations, or these are different forces, and each archetype actually oversees a category or a series of emanations with it that's associated with it. Okay, and so I mentioned earlier, one of the emanations is a sense of validation and intention, and so where it's inclined to give validation to others because we know it has a submissive aspect to it, a submissive position to it. But then also, it also, because the three is also overseen by the ego from a healthy space, it also is an aspect to the three where it needs that sense of validation coming back to it, Miriam. And so this individual can definitely draw in a lot of takers, and they're gonna have to really set those boundaries. I said they need to get some truth seekers around in their life. They need to get some people that are very empathic and also are just naturally selfless and mindful for their inner well-being and for their personal growth. I did not say earlier, but also for their personal growth. If they got that around them, then they can really feel that sense of freedom and get that sense of stability as they extend themselves out, you know, helping other people. It's a nice quality about them, but it also can work against them, is they're a champion for the underdog. So they really love uplifting people that other people's overlooking and so forth. That can work for them or it can work against them. Okay. And so if they find themselves in this sense of space of needing validation, Miriam, this individual definitely will entertain or open itself up to take in takers, because now indirectly, and it might be a shadow, it might be a blind spot, that now they're doing a shift into that space, and now they find people trying to take and just really draw from the energy that we call energy vampires. So this person right here, that's another, thank you for your question. This person right here definitely probably draws energy vampires in their midst. You know, they definitely probably draw those individuals like that. Right, Inez, you say it always confuses me when people randomly share things about themselves that I don't ask for. You know, now if you got some threes in you, that's why. If you got some threes in you, that's why. People just, you know, and you could be putting up a whole shield, a whole guard, like, I don't want to talk to you. But this individual has that aspect to them where they're willing to promote others. They want to see the well-being of others. Okay, cool. Yeah, Mary, you should. I'm kind of interested to see if you got a three in your soul profile. You know, we got some similarities. I'm curious, but yes. So that's kind of what's up right there. Is this individual has to really make sure to safeguard themselves from the self-talk that works against them. Okay, so they need to engage in pleasant self-talk. If you're listening, you need to engage in more pleasant self-talk. If you're not really engaging in that, it's probably going to trigger a lot of instability that you might be wrestling with. And a lot of people are like, whoa, well, just showing, a lot of their instability is triggered from their self-talk. I'm gonna say it again. A lot of their instability is triggered from their self-talk. So yes, Amanda, in this case I've been talking about today, Dr. Amanda, is yes, we could show this is a shadow of them going to instability, because a healthy state should be in an instability. So this person might find themselves sabotaging themselves or putting themselves in compromising situations. Let's say, for example, right? Um, let's say this person has a bill due, right? And they got to pay their water bill, but if they don't pay their water bill, they're going to cut the water off. But then they recognize someone else comes and has a need, they'll ignore their obligation and help that other person, and all of a sudden this person's water gets cut off. Okay, and then another month comes by and they do the same thing again, except for the different scenario. uh Say like, um they had another bill to pay and they help somebody else but neglect themselves. That is a shadow. Okay. Shadows, I like to say, and just in simplicity, because there's a lot of people who talk about shadows. So the shadow, we already know, is the unconscious, repressed behaviors that we don't recognize about ourselves in one aspect. I like to say these are highlighted vices that works against us. I like to compare as a measurable for shadows, to compare against the virtue versus our vices. How often do we favor our vices over our virtues? And so when we start understanding different virtues and nature of them, and we start looking at how much do we work against my self-interest, how much I work against my self-love, how much do I work against my sense of balance, how much do I operate in a space of selfishness from an unhealthy space versus being selfish from a healthy space. So there's a lot of different things that can that highlights us in circles around, shadows. And as we continue to do these soul to soul conversations, I'll definitely be getting into those. But as you see today, that this individual, um, there is a strong propensity for shadows to kick in, that's shown as self-neglect or that martyrdom syndrome, and the negative self-talk. Okay. And then also their communication, their ineffective, imbalanced communication that they kind of have going on. And so this kind of just sparks a lot of things in their orbit that can find themselves kind of creating instability inside themselves and also in their domestic environment. So this individual can find themselves in a lot of there you go. This individual probably can find themselves in a lot of uncompromising situations and compromising situations because of his overly giving nature, like Miriam is bringing out, that people are willing to kind of draw and take from it without being mindful of them. That's why I said earlier that this individual has to make sure they have people in their circle that's very mindful of them as they're mindful of others, because their mindset, their energy position, there's a draw to submissive position with that 3, where it is more quickly inclined to think outside of his own self-interest, the interest of others. And that's a good thing. But since, if there's imbalances going on with that, it can shift it to the point where it's now neglecting its own self-importance. Okay. And some of us, a lot of us, well, a lot of people are coached, a lot of people wrestle with that. And so this is a great tool right here to kind of help see that. So that way, and of course, as I don't have time today or anything, but if I went deeper into this and into a profile report, I could really start to pull in their living soul matrix, and see which numbers can help them to balance out these tendencies if they find themselves shifting into that. Okay. So I kind of mentioned a little bit today, but it's definitely you're welcome, love. All right. Ooh, this is what Dr. Lynn said. When it comes to women, I found that my shadow was living my life in a way that could keep me in good standing with the family. Later found out it was all manipulated to control what I do in my home. Mm, mm, wow. So, yeah, share some of your feedback before we hop off of here. So I'm open to kind of see your thoughts and takes. So hopefully, was you able to kind of pull from this? One of the things like in stuff like this, you kind of can see aspects. Oh, I could relate to that. I kind of connect with that. So hopefully, you kind of can see. Like I said, I'll probably come back and do a part two to this tomorrow because um, I think we can pull some things from the love style that might can help them out as well. That might can, as Dr. Liz said, kind of freaky. So let me see what else you got on here. Uh, Thanks. You welcome. Cool, cool, cool. So that's what's up. So everybody, so we can kind of get alerts as we go on in the future. Excuse me. So you know when we're going to go, live. Right now I'm on live on YouTube, here on Facebook, and Instagram was acting up, but I'll get that together, and so that way um, the piece from Instagram kind of can chime in as well. Okay, so you could join the text community, so that way communication kind of can because I know everybody's always on Facebook all the time like that, and so just text 1-833-475-0111. Once you do that, then type in soul to soul as one word, capitalize the S and use the number two. So soul, SOUL, number two, capital S, soul, SOUL, soul to soul. Text to the number 1-833-475-0111. Some of you that are in the Wise Tribe, you already kind of get text signals. So if you're already in the Wise Tribe, you can just go ahead and just type in soul to soul and you can be able to chime in. Okay. Um, if anyone's interested, you could be anonymous like this individual. Feel free to inbox me. You're just your date of birth, and um, it'll be inside the inventory. And as we do different shows, I'll cover different stuff and different aspects. Okay. So I appreciate everybody chiming in. I know it's all grown folk. Kind of feels good. I got grown folk on here just vibing out. Hopefully you was able to pull something out of this. Continue to. I'm still gonna look at the thread. So even after I hop off of here, I'll kind of go through and see different things that you shared. So all the feedback is lovely. Because the beautiful thing about this, what I want to do with the soul to soul, is that we all can edify each other. We all can draw from different parts. One good thing is a lot of us are, we're just very mature in life, and um, we probably can get different angles and to help us out just by doing, dialogues like this. Okay, so it's also going to be very great for relationships. We're going to break down the math behind the relationships. And I got several people that submitted some of their numbers, so it's going to be pretty interesting to kind of tap into that. That's always fun to get into that as well. So should bring a lot of understanding, a lot of clarity, probably healing, and so forth. And that's the aim. Okay, so if you feel like you feel moved to support this effort, you can reach out to me in the inbox in private. You can also cash at me. It's the $ Satori Seals. It'll show up and it'll say Wisdom and Vibe brand. That is me. Or if some of you to receive the text from the soul to soul, you can look in the initial text that you received from the reply once you text soul to soul, and you can click support. And It'll take you to follow that link, and you can just kind of, just support, the $11 or whatever to try to keep everything, you know, as if you let. All right. So that's what's up. So we're trying back down, touch back down. Appreciate everybody. One love. Be easy.